Chapter 12. Since Inti is a tracker, she is aware of the best place to bury Stuart's body to prevent discovery. She comes home to see Aggie dozing off in bed. She has bled on the sheets during her period. After washing her and putting a sanitary pad in her underpants, exhausted Inti leaves. When Duncan arrives at the house, he and Inti engage in a stilted chat. Neither will acknowledge that they are suspicious about the other's whereabouts the night before. Duncan is aware that Stuart is missing, and Inti is aware that she will be held responsible should he discover Stuart's death. Inti is hesitant to accept his invitation to a dinner party. Inti recalls that she and Aggie's cycles typically coincide after he departs. She is pregnant, according to a pharmacy pregnancy test. Chapter 13. Inti is brought into the station by Duncan so he can question her over Stuart's disappearance. He inquires about her whereabouts the night before and her participation in the Wolf Project. He investigates Inti's past to learn why she was so protective of Lainey after determining her motivation for killing Stuart. She keeps her sister's rape a secret from him. Instead, she explains to him how she can hardly hurt, much less murder, anyone because of her mirror-touch synesthesia. Inti discovers Aggie reading by the fire while awake at home. She informs her that she will be a part of the Stuart search team. Aggie offers to come if Inti requests it, but Inti is aware that Aggie won't be able to leave the house. Although she realizes that Aggie's mental state is too fragile to handle such news, she still wants to inform Aggie that she buried Stuart's body. The group looks all day long for Stuart's body with no luck. Chapter 14. Inti's life in Sydney is briefly mentioned in the novel after their father goes missing. Aggie plunged herself into relationships, while Inti put herself into her studies. Inti encounters a man at Sydney University who inquires about her PhD program. Her attempts to learn about wolves from books are mocked by him. He is training to become a neurosurgeon and thinks that the mind, not the body, is the source of all sensations and experiences. He drives her home in the morning after they spend the night together. Inti considers it odd that he did not inquire about her name, despite knowing her address. Aggie recognizes him as her boyfriend, Gus Holloway, when he comes into the house. Gus confused Inti for Aggie because he was unaware that she had a twin. When he departs, Aggie suggests that they divide him equally with everyone else. Aggie acknowledges that Gus is not a particularly lovely person, and Inti has a negative impression of him. Chapter 15. The town conducts a meeting 2 weeks after Stuart goes missing. The brothers of Lainey are offering a reward to anyone who can help them find him. Wolves can't confess, a woman in the crowd claims. In the meantime, Inti is becoming closer to number 6 in her group. Due to wolves' aversion to the smell of humans, this is hazardous. The pups could be put at risk by her presence because 6 might desert them if she detects human odors too closely. Aggie prepared vegetable lasagna at home. She admits that she is aware of Inti's pregnancy. Inti suggests that she will end the pregnancy while denying that it is Duncan's child. Inti attends Duncan's dinner party that evening. The conversation grows tense when the other guests inquire about the wolves. Lainey arrives and enters Duncan's bedroom after him. Duncan and Lainey had a relationship before she married Stuart, and they had an affair after her marriage, according to one of the visitors. Inti is upset because she believes Duncan and Lainey are still together. She now believes that he killed Stuart for a more sinister reason. Chapters 12 to 15 Analysis. The narrative arc of the town's hunt for Stuart is concluded by these chapters. Despite not having located his body after 2 weeks of looking, they concede that he is dead. Inti's connection with Duncan becomes even more complicated in these chapters. She views Duncan's relationship with Lainey as unmistakable evidence of a purpose. She doesn't think he just went for a stroll that evening. She also now knows that she is expecting his child. She believes she can't honor both Duncan and Aggie after learning this, which causes her to triangulate her ties with them. She thinks it is only normal for her to put her sister's needs ahead of Duncan and her child. Chapter 14 stands out since it mainly discusses historical occurrences. The majority of the chapters switch back and forth between the past and the present, but this chapter establishes the plot of Aggie's connection with Gus, which catalyzes future events. Since she makes lasagna in these chapters, Aggie's lucidity foreshadows the admission that she is the murderer, since it demonstrates that she can occasionally act on her own initiative. Chapter 16. Chapter 16 opens with a description of Aggie and Gus's surprise wedding. Gus is unpopular with Inti, and she is upset because Aggie made a snap choice and neglected to invite their mother. Although she believes Aggie is out of control, Aggie does not give a damn. The three of them relocate to Alaska after Inti is hired to rewild wolves in Denali. Police officer Bonnie pulls Inti into the station on the current day for additional interrogation. She informs Inti that the cause of Stuart's disappearance is being investigated as a potential homicide. Although she denies that he went out later that night, Inti claims her night with Duncan as her alibi. Duncan is still a suspect, but before she can confirm anything, she needs additional details. She searches online but can discover nothing about Duncan, so she asks Fergus, a friend of his, for a drink to find out more. Fergus says that Duncan killed his father when they were youths, after he had beaten Duncan's mother to death with a cricket bat. Inti awakens from a nightmare, shocked at the cottage. Morning sickness causes her to throw up, so she is surprised when Aggie refuses to work with their horse because she thinks her ex-husband could be outside. Inti has another dream in which she and the wolves run into the forest. Chapter 17. Inti once murdered a wolf in Alaska. Accidentally, the wolf's lung was penetrated by a tranquilizer dart. To cheer her up, Aggie and Gus took her on a trek to Mount Denali. But they encountered two hunters who boasted of shooting wolves for sport while they were there. Gus later admitted to Inti that he had murdered a woman during one of his operations. According to him, a woman shouldn't know that about her husband, therefore he vowed never to tell Aggie. Chapter 18. Since Stuart's passing 2 months ago, Inti has continued to monitor the wolves' growth. The Tanarpax puppies have grown up and mated. They will soon find partners as well. As Inti unintentionally detects number 10's signal, she discovers that she has returned to the Glenshee pack to guard her pregnant sister, number 8. 8 have been hurt while 2 wolves fight for territory. Inti needs to learn if her pups are alive and whether 6 can be treated. As it is summer, Inti expects that the locals would give up trying to locate Stuart. Inti no longer sees Duncan, and she tries to not think about being pregnant. She has started to stalk Duncan after he leaves work since she still believes he killed Stuart. He travels into the woods one night in search of Stuart's body. As Inti approaches him and asks if he is the murderer, Duncan stays silent. Inti arrives home to discover Aggie hiding on the floor because she thinks Gus is pursuing her outdoors. When Inti lies and claims that she killed Gus, Aggie's tension is reduced. Inti discovers Aggie outside riding their horse, Gall, the following morning. Inti calls her mother to get advice on what to do after the murder, to express her continued doubts about Duncan's innocence. To determine what can and cannot be proven to be honest, her mother advises her to make a timeline and assume that everyone is lying. In response to Inti's inquiry as to why her mother performs this profession, the mother discloses that she had a violent stepfather. Chapter 19. Red McCrae, with whom Inti first makes contact as part of her inquiry, informs her that Duncan imprisoned Stuart the night of their argument. The timeline is illogical given that she discovered Stuart's death in the middle of the night, and that Duncan was missing from his home at 3 a.m. Inti is baffled as to why Duncan would murder Stuart and leave his body where it could be discovered. She recognizes that a wolf attack is more probable. After several months apart, Inti brings Duncan to the team's hide in the forest because she wants him to understand the value of the wolf. Duncan explains to her that his father's leg break with a cricket bat when he was 13 is the cause of his limp. Duncan's mother said it herself because she didn't want to upset the father by taking him to the hospital. As a result, it didn't heal well. He admits to her that he hasn't had a romantic relationship with Lainey in a while. After he killed his father, Lainey refused to date him out of fear for him. Inti advises Duncan that to find a wolf, one must follow its prey. They locate deer and marvel as number 6, whom the group has given the moniker Ash, enters the river to kill a doe. As the journey deepens their bond, Inti still does not fully trust Duncan. Chapter 20. The sisters' time in Alaska is briefly mentioned in Chapter 20. Aggie and Gus's relationship has deteriorated after 5 years of marriage, and Inti sees her sister's declining emotional state. Aggie gets wasted at a party hosted by one of her fellow language instructors one evening. Gus roughhouses Aggie as he attempts to load her into the car when Gus and Inti arrive to fetch her up. Inti confronts him and tells him she won't allow him to harm Inti's sister. The following day, Aggie tries to persuade Inti to go, and Inti understands that Aggie is doing this to keep her safe from Gus. Chapters 16 to 20 Analysis. The chapters in this portion continue Inti's investigation into Stuart's murder, as well as setting up the secondary narrative's climax, Rape Gus of Aggie. Chapters 17 and 20 in their entirety are devoted to Inti's first years in Alaska. Inti becomes increasingly worried about Aggie's welfare in these portions. Aggie's careless actions are assumed to be driven by a risk-taking nature by the reader, because McConaghy withholds information that may explain their cause. Aggie has a strong relationship with Gus, but similar to Lainey, she pretends to love their games more than she does. Gus has reportedly threatened to harm Inti if Aggie tries to escape, something Inti is unaware of. Aggie's actions are reminiscent of those of the other women in the narrative, notably Lainey, who make an effort to appease their abusive spouses, despite knowing that doing so could put them and possibly other people in danger. The larger issue of women in violent relationships receiving little help and protection is reflected in Inti's criticism of Duncan's lack of intervention. Women who leave these situations run the risk of being forced to return due to lack of care. McConaghy ups the tension in his stories by employing dramatic irony. Even though it demonstrates Duncan's protective instincts, Inti suspects Duncan of killing Stuart because of the way he killed his violent father. The reader is more aware of Inti's actions on the night of Stuart's murder than Duncan is, and Duncan's hesitation to provide Inti with a definitive answer regarding his whereabouts suggests that he has his own suspicions. Moreover, McConaghy employs a triangulated plot structure to up the suspense and connect the novel's intricate plots. The wolves serve as a triangulating factor in Inti and Duncan's skepticism of one another. Both suspect that the attack was carried out by wolves. Inti is adamant that Duncan comprehend the wolves, including how they locate, kill, and communicate with one another, as well as the extent they will go to avoid coming into touch with humans. They become closer as a result of their day spent watching wolves, but their fundamental worries are still unanswered. Chapter 21. At a knitting party, Inti learns about local conservation initiatives to rewild the highlands from the drugstore employee, old Mrs. Doyle. Inti is pleasantly delighted to learn that some locals are on board with her wolf initiative and are aware of the dangers of an unbalanced ecosystem. Inti chats with Lainey at the bar to discover more about Stuart's final night. She learns from Lainey that she informed the police that she had picked up Stuart from jail and taken him home. Stuart actually instructed her to deliver him to Duncan's home. Lainey called Duncan to let him know Stuart was coming and that he was aware of their relationship. Lainey informs Inti that when she was on her way home, she witnessed her bury Stuart's body. She claims to be aware of where the body is and that Inti was near the highway. Lainey is relieved that Stuart is dead, but she dislikes that Inti is to blame. Because Lainey believes Duncan killed Stuart, Inti believes Lainey has not come forward. Chapter 22. Inti is worried because the terrain is not regenerating as expected in the fall. Red and the others might take this as an excuse to go wolf hunting, she worries. A dead cow is found. It was undoubtedly the result of a wolf assault. When the village finds out that nothing will be done, Colm McClellan, one of the residents, kills number 14, a senior guy. The 14's head is strung up during the Halloween Samhain celebration. By this time, Inti is heavily pregnant, but she is concealing it, and only Mrs. Doyle, Aggie, and Evan are aware of it. Inti follows Colm to his house and uses a crowbar to smash up his car. She uses the crowbar to smash his kneecap when he steps outdoors. She removes her footprints from the crowbar, finds 14's collar in his shed, and then departs. She offers Duncan Colm's address over the phone. Chapter 23. She and Colm are both charged with felonies and given fines. More animals have been lost, and Inti's squad is aware that the wolf responsible for the attacks must be eliminated. Inti has located the Tanar pack near Red's property, so one night she ventures outside to the forest's edge to avoid an attack. The lead wolf and his pack flee after she shoots over his head. Inti is told not to be out there in her state by Red when he comes, implying that he is also aware of her pregnancy. When Colm enters the cottage, he smashes Inti's window, startling both Inti and Aggie. Inti asks Duncan for assistance. When he gets there, he forces Colm and his pals into his truck. When he first meets Aggie, she is vehemently defending Inti. Inti tells Duncan to go, as he is ready to inquire about the baby's parentage. Aggie gestures to the woman not to let Duncan back inside the house. Chapter 24. In the brief Chapter 24 segment, Inti describes her failed attempt to con Gus by posing as Aggie. She meets him and informs him that she is leaving him after sending him an SMS from her sister's phone. When Aggie tries to leave him, he responds that he would kill Inti. Gus learns that Inti exchanged spots later. Aggie pretends that they were testing him and that it was a joke. Inti escapes and locks herself in the restroom while Aggie attempts to place the responsibility elsewhere so that Gus won't punish her.